In this screencast, I am demonstrating the use of a radar plot to find the new course to steer after a delay, and then finding the time to resume the original course steered. In this example, own ship has a course of 025 degrees true and a speed of 13 knots. The target's 3 sets of ranges and bearings are listed in the table at 6-minute intervals. From the data, we can tell that the vessel will pass astern of own ship, as the range is decreasing and the bearings are increasing slightly. It is important that the officer can determine the risk of collision by observation of ranges and bearings alone. Risk of collision does exist, but the CPA is unclear, and therefore a radar plot must be completed. The target, ranges, and bearings are plotted on the plotting sheet. By plotting, we can see that the OT, relative motion line, indicates that risk of collision does exist and that the CPA is about 0.7 miles. Note that if risk of collision did not exist, a full report does not need to be completed for this target. Plot a full 12-minute MOT triangle and determine the full report data. This skill is assumed and will not be covered in this video. Once risk of collision and our obligation to give way is established, it is clear that an alteration of course to starboard or a reduction in speed are the appropriate maneuvers under Rules 15 or 19. We will utilize an alteration of course to starboard, ensuring that the target vessel will pass safely on our port side at a CPA of 1.5 miles. Naturally, there is a delay from the time of the last range and bearing and the time that the alteration of course is taken. We can easily predict where the target will be in the future based on the relative motion line and relative speed of the target. First, a new 18-minute M1O-T1 triangle is created by scaling up from the original 12-minute triangle. The alteration of course will take place around 0824, so we must know where the target will be, so T1 is plotted. In order to determine the new course to steer, we must also extend M to M1. Note that MT is parallel to M1T1, as the target has not changed course and speed. The time has simply been extended from 12 to 18 minutes for all 3 sides. To determine the new course to steer for a 1.5 mile CPA, a new O1-T1 relative motion line is plotted through T1, passing 1.5 miles to port of own ship and extended back past O and M. As the M1 and T1 points are known, the next step is to find O1 and, by connecting M1 to O1, the new course to steer can be found. As own ship course is changing, but not speed, set the dividers M1 to O, and with M1 as the center, scribe an arc turning clockwise until the divider crosses the new relative motion line at O1. A new M1-O1-T1 triangle is formed, providing the officer with the new course to steer for a 1.5 mile CPA from target vessel, provided that the alteration of course is executed by 0824 hours. Using a parallel ruler, transfer the M1-O1 line to the center of the plotting sheet, and read the new course to steer as 086 degrees true. Obviously, the officer will now execute the maneuver and turn the vessel to starboard to 086 degrees or more. Further ranges and bearings are then taken to monitor that the maneuver is successful and that the target vessel is remaining on or outside of the O1-T1 relative motion line, and therefore the 1.5 mile CPA is maintained at all times until the vessel is finally passed and clear. The next steps are to identify the new TCPA and estimate the time to resume the original course steered. First, plot the CPA position on the new O1-T1 line, and then transfer the original relative motion line, OT, to a point 1.5 miles to port of own ship. Next, determine new relative speed for the O1-T1 line. Then measure the range from T1 at 0824 to the new CPA point, and then to the position where the O1-T1 line and the transferred original relative motion line intersect. Note that these positions are different, but may overlap due to coincidence only. The new relative speed is found to be 28 knots. The distance to CPA is 4.7 miles, and the distance to the resume course position is 5.2 miles. So, at 28 knots, the CPA and time to resume original course will occur 10 minutes and 11 minutes after 0824 hours, respectively. In reality, these times are a guide only, and will depend on when the alteration took place and any speed lost during the maneuver. Radar and visual observations will confirm the effectiveness of the maneuver and the point at which own ship can resume the original course.